Discover the incredible transformation, how an unexpected betrayal changed my life forever at 60. Tom stood in his garage, his heart racing as he gripped a wrench, memories flooding back. The hum of lawnmowers outside and the scent of summer barbecues filled the air. At 60, he thought he had seen it all until betrayal struck hard. His longtime friend Frank, someone he had trusted implicitly, was plotting to take away his hard-won contract for the community center renovation. A place that meant the world to him, to Nancy, and to their spirited granddaughter, Lily. As he tightened the bolt on a machine, he felt the weight of this newfound knowledge settle heavily in his chest. Anger bubbled just beneath the surface, but it was disbelief that stung the most. How could he? Tom muttered, wrench slipping from his hand, clanging to the floor like a hammer of truth that shattered his reality. Life hadn't always been easy, but he had poured everything into this project, believing it could uplift their community, a gathering place for veterans and friends to share laughter and warmth. Yet now, everything felt tainted, and the air thickened with unspoken tension. His mind flickered to Nancy and Lily, their faces lighting up with pride as he described the plans. The pain of betrayal was a bitter pill, one he couldn't bear to swallow for their sake. Just when Tom thought the world couldn't throw any more at him, news rattled through the neighborhood. Local veterans faced eviction from their homes. Stories of sacrifice filled the gatherings, men and women who had fought for freedom, now finding themselves on the brink of losing everything. The heartbeat of Tom's community was at stake, and the injustice sparked a fire within him. In his garage, he envisioned all the faces, the ones who laughed hard at barbecues and carried the weight of shared stories. He resolved to gather the neighborhood friends, veterans, families to confront this urgent threat. He stepped out, his resolve fueled by compassion, uniting them over warm summer evenings where hope could weave its way into their hearts. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned to weeks as Tom organized gatherings, igniting the spirit of solidarity in his neighbors. Stories were shared, and bonds strengthened with each face he saw. Yet, a shadow loomed over him. Frank. The thought of confronting his friend twisted his stomach. They had shared everything: dreams, losses, laughter. How could he display the courage to face someone who had become a part of his very fabric, now feeling like a splinter in his side? As the community prepared for a showdown, Tom felt a mix of determination and dread. Voices surrounded him as he stood center stage, knowing that every word he spoke would echo not only through the air but right into his own soul. The tension crackled like static, heavy with unspoken words. He was here for the community, for the veterans. Could he also find a way to mend his own broken heart? Standing on that precipice, with the hopes of many resting on his shoulders, Tom realized his choices had the power to shape their collective future. Would he choose to unleash anger, or would he reach for forgiveness? The air buzzed with uncertainty, but one thing was clear: in this moment of truth, he would either rise above the betrayal or let it consume him. As he readied himself for the confrontation, he understood deeply: sometimes, from our deepest wounds, we can rise stronger than ever before. Tom stood at the podium, heart thumping like a jackhammer. The audience warmed to him: familiar faces, neighbors he had shared many summer nights with, and stories that intertwined with his life in ways he couldn't begin to articulate. They looked to him, eyes filled with hope and desperation, a mosaic of trust he felt unworthy of. At that moment he cleared his throat, shifting the papers in front of him like he could somehow rearrange the thoughts swirling in his mind. "Thank you all for being here," he started, voice steady despite the tumult inside. "We're gathered not just for ourselves but for those who have shown great courage throughout their lives, the veterans among us." Loud murmurs and nods of understanding rippled through the crowd. It warmed him, a surge of collective strength that urged him forward. "Some of you know," he continued, letting a breath release the heaviness in his chest, "that we're facing a grave challenge. Our veterans deserve a home, a space where they can find solace, camaraderie, and support. They should not have to fight for what they have already given us so freely." A few faces brightened with encouragement, others showed concern. It fueled him. The anger that had been simmering boiled just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. And yet, he added, voice louder now, we see betrayal lurking in the shadows. People we once called friends turning against us, taking advantage of those who can't fight back. We cannot let this stand. A gust of applause came his way, the spirit of the crowd igniting something fierce within him. He waved his hand to still the room, feeling a surge of unity in the energy surrounding them. We owe it to ourselves, to each other, to rise above this. Show our strength as a community. He felt alive and aching all at once, words pouring out like a flood. Together, we can stand for what is right. We have the power to demand change. But there was still a storm brewing within him, a battle against the rage he kept at bay for Frank. He shared his feelings of betrayal not to garner sympathy, but as part of the larger story at play. Forgiveness isn't easy. It's like sailing against the wind, every ounce of anger tearing at the sails. There was a quiet moment, full of understanding, as other faces mirrored the hope and hurt he felt. After the meeting, Tom stepped outside, the cool evening air greasing his resolve. He spotted Frank lingering by the old oak tree, a remnant of their shared past that now felt like haunted ground. Memories swirled, laughter, fishing trips, stories told late at night. Each shared moment struck a chord, an echo of the love turned to bitterness. With a deep breath, Tom took tentative steps toward his old friend. Frank, he called out, each note trembling with emotion. Silence stretched between them, thickening the air. He wasn't sure what would come next, anger, blame, heartbreak, or perhaps something unexpected. Frank looked up, revealing a mix of guilt and defiance that made Tom's heart ache. The weight of the past loomed over them, ready to crash down or break apart. One word, one gesture could lead to reconciliation or complete fracture. Would they really confront what lay beneath this breach, facing it as they once confronted the world together? As he stood there, the answer hung in the air, charged with uncertainty. Would they find a way back to friendship or be consumed by betrayal for good? Tom took another step closer, the grass crunching quietly under his shoes. He felt the weight of 1,000 unspoken words sitting heavy on his chest. I need to talk to you, he managed, his voice softer now, more tentative. He searched Frank's expression, hoping for a flicker of the bond they once shared. Frank turned his gaze back to the tree, as if the old oak held the answers to all their problems. I don't think we have anything left to say, Tom. His words were flat, devoid of the warmth Tom had always relied on. Please, just hear me out, Tom pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone. What happened between us, what you did, it hurt. But I don't want to lose you. Not like this. Frank shifted, muscles tensing at Tom's words. The silence continued to suffocate them, and Tom could feel the pulsing rhythm of his heart echo in the stillness. Memories flooded back, football games under the Friday night lights, shared smiles during barbecues, the countless moments that defined their friendship. You were my brother, Frank, Tom said finally, choking a little on the enormity of the statement. We've fought battles together. Why let this destroy us? A flicker of something crossed Frank's face. Was it guilt? Anger? Either way, it ignited the tiniest spark of hope within Tom. I know you feel betrayed, but you have to believe me, I was trying to protect you from the fallout. Protect me? Tom scoffed, the hurt bubbling back to the surface. You let me walk into the fire unprepared. How is that protection? The words tasted bitter, but they felt oddly liberating. For too long, Tom had stood silently as his anger festered. Addressing it felt like unveiling a wound that desperately needed air. None of this was easy for me, Frank admitted, finally meeting Tom's gaze. I made choices that I thought were for the best. I didn't think you'd forgive me. I didn't even know if I could forgive myself. A deep hurt lingered in Frank's voice. Tom realized that, perhaps, they were both stuck in that same endless loop of pain and misunderstanding. Then let us work through it, Tom urged, feeling the eager pulsing of emotion, the hope that perhaps, just perhaps, they could reconnect. Let us talk. I want to understand. I don't want bitterness to define us anymore. Frank's shoulders softened a fraction, and for a brief moment, Tom thought he saw a glimmer of the friend he had once known. You really want to fix this? After all that has happened? Yes. I don't want this to be how our story ends. Tom shifted his weight, taking a step closer again, inviting. We've both lost too much. Let us try to find a way back. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, the air between them shimmered with unspoken possibilities. Tom felt a glimmer of hope unfold, as fragile and delicate as the fading light. Frank's expression cracked just a bit, as if a small gap in the wall he had built was beginning to show. Then, just as hope surged within Tom, Frank took a breath so deep it seemed to carry the weight of the world. Okay, he said finally, but the uncertainty still lingered in his eyes. Let us talk. But it won't be easy. Tom's heart leapt a hard-won opening. I don't expect it to be, he replied softly, but I believe it's worth fighting for. They stood there, two friends on either side of a chasm, balanced between history and the future. Could they rebuild what had been shattered? The answers lay just out of reach, tangled in years of hurt and the hard road ahead, but they were finally willing to journey together. What would that look like? Would forgiveness be enough to heal old wounds, or would the past continue to haunt them? Tom took a deep breath, the air settling uncomfortably in his lungs as he steeled himself for what felt like the most monumental conversation of his life. Okay, then where do we start? He asked, casting a cautious glance at Frank, whose gaze drifted to the ground, as if he could find answers in the grass. Let us just be honest, Frank finally said, the weariness of his tone weighing heavy. I guess you deserve that much. Yeah, honesty. I can do that. Tom rubbed the back of his neck, anxiety prickling at the edges of his composure. What you did with the project, it felt like betrayal, you know? Like I wasn't part of your life anymore. Frank stiffened, and there was an almost instinctive flinch in his posture. I never meant for it to feel that way. Then what was it? Tom interrupted, frustration rising. What did you think all those late-night calls and weekend meetings meant? You just cut me out without so much as a word. Frank's jaw tightened. I thought I was sparing you. Spared you the pressure that was all about to blow up in our faces. But I was wrong, Tom. I see that now. I should have trusted you. The words hung between them, weighty and raw. Tom felt his heart teetering, unsure of what to make of Frank's admission. The bitter taste of anger still lingered, but there was an undercurrent of something else: regret. So, why didn't you just tell me? Tom asked, lowering his voice. Why didn't you just come clean? Frank took a step back, his eyes narrowing as if he were retreating into the depths of painful recollections. Because I was afraid. I was scared of losing you. Scared that if I shared what was happening, you'd think I was manipulating things. Manipulating? The word stung like a raw nerve. You did it anyway. I had to hear it from someone else. Frank took a deep breath, his frustration boiling over. It wasn't an easy decision. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, and the only thing I could do was push you away to protect you from falling. Silence reclaimed the space between them, thick like fog on an early morning. Tom relished the tense quiet, letting the words settle before finally speaking again, softer this time. Look, I'm not saying it's easy to forgive you. I'm just asking if you'll let me know that we can still be in this together. I want to try, Frank. Even if it hurts. Frank's expression flickered again, and for a moment, Tom saw the familiar warmth return to his eyes. Yeah, it might hurt, he nodded slowly. But maybe it's worth trying to be honest. Tom nodded, relief washing over him like a balm. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way back together. He could feel a fragile link starting to reweave between them. Okay, Tom said. Let us promise to keep talking. Settle this mess between us. We might discover something we've been too scared to say. Just then, the distant sound of laughter and music floated over from the neighbor's yard, a reminder of the world continuing outside of their heavy moment. Frank chuckled softly, breaking the tension. We sound like we should be in some sort of therapy session for broken friendships. I'll take that over silence any day, Tom replied, a small smile creeping onto his face. But as they exchanged tentative smiles, a shadow crossed Frank's expression, a flicker of doubt that Tom couldn't ignore. You really think we have a chance? I do, Tom asserted. But it's going to take time and effort on both our parts. We can't bounce back like before overnight. The shift in Frank's posture suggested he was bracing himself for an uphill battle. Yeah, I understand. Yet, the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes reminded Tom just how far they had to go. Frank, do you think it's too late for us? Tom asked, his voice almost a whisper, a question they both feared to answer. Frank's gaze dropped again, the question lingering. I guess we'll have to find out one we. More uncertainty filled the air, but for the first time in a long while, Tom felt something igniting, perhaps a small light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Would that light grow brighter, or would it flicker out before they could reach it? The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear, the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Tom watched as the shadows danced across Frank's face, emotions swirling in the space between them. The laughter from the neighbor's yard felt distant now, a world apart from their struggle. Just then, an idea sparked in Tom's mind, an unexpected way to bridge the divide that had formed between them. What if we make a plan? He suggested tentatively. A real plan to get back to where we were? Frank raised an eyebrow, curiosity mingling with skepticism. A plan? Like what? Start a new project? Not a project but a goal. Something personal. Let us commit to meeting every week and talking about what we can do better. Both in our friendship and life in general. Frank hesitated, scratching his chin as if weighing the absurdity of it all. You mean, like accountability partners? Exactly. We can keep each other in check, help each other grow. It could be good for both of us. Something tangible, you know? I don't know, Tom. What if it doesn't work? Frank frowned, uncertainty gnawing at him. What if it does? This could be our way of starting fresh. We both want to fix things, right? Let us turn this around. Tom felt hope rising, his heart thudding louder as he spoke. He saw a flicker of understanding ignite in Frank's eyes. Frank sighed, running a hand through his hair. All right, but I'm not making any promises about not messing up again. Hey, nobody's perfect. Tom smiled, the corners of his mouth curling upwards. It's about trying together. Okay, I'm in. But we have to be honest about our struggles. No more hiding behind excuses. Emboldened by Frank's acceptance, Tom felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Deal. That'll be our first rule, honesty about everything. We've already got a head start. They both chuckled softly, the tension beginning to melt away. For the first time in a long while, laughter returned, but this time it was layered with newfound resolve. Just think of it as a friendship boot camp, Tom added, nudging Frank playfully. We can emerge stronger than ever. Frank smiled. I can get on board with that. But I warn you, I'm not the easiest person to train. I'm a bit stubborn. I already know that, Tom shot back, heart racing a little with excitement. As they began to sketch out plans for their weekly meetups, a sense of direction filled the air. It was a small beginning, but it felt monumental. But amid the camaraderie, doubt still whispered in their minds, an uninvited reminder of the distance they had yet to traverse. Frank's eyes flickered momentarily as he pondered a question he hadn't voiced. What happens if one of us falters again? If we slip up? The air grew dense again, and Tom's heart stilled for a moment. I guess we face it. Together. They fell silent, the enormity of what lay ahead weighing heavily. Would they truly be able to navigate the rough patches? But deep down, hope sparkled amidst the uncertainty. It felt like stepping into unknown territory where they could learn and become better together. As the sun dipped lower, washing the yard with the soft glow of dusk, Tom felt a sense of anticipation. They were embarking on something that could redefine their friendship. Okay, then, Frank said firmly, shaking off doubt. Let us do this. But as they finalized their plans, another feeling crept in, an unexpected fear of what lay ahead. Would they be able to withstand whatever obstacles were yet to come? That lingering question seemed to hang in the air, a shadow lurking just beyond the light of their hopeful path. The next few days were a mix of excitement and anxiety for Tom. The commitment they made hung over him like a ticking clock. Their first meeting was set for the following Saturday. He felt an unexpected thrill and yet a tight knot in his stomach. What if they stumbled? What if their plans unraveled before they even began? Saturday morning arrived, and Tom found himself pacing in his living room, glancing at his phone every few minutes. He wanted to make this work. He wanted to believe in the promise of change, but he couldn't shake the doubt that lingered. Would Frank show? When the doorbell finally rang, Tom's heart jumped. He opened the door to find Frank standing there, his hands stuffed deep into his jacket pockets, a faint smile on his face. Hey, Frank said, his voice steadier than his appearance suggested. Hey. You made it, Tom replied, relief washing over him. As they settled in the living room, the atmosphere was charged. The comfortable familiarity they once shared was tinged with awkwardness. Tom grabbed a notepad from the coffee table and cleared his throat. All right, so, where do we start? How about we talk about what's been bothering us? Frank suggested, his gaze dropping to the floor. Tom felt a pang of unease, but he nodded. They had promised honesty. Okay, I guess I'll go first, Tom said slowly. I've been feeling really isolated lately. Like, without you it's been hard. Frank nodded, his expression softening. I get that. I felt alone too, especially after everything. Sometimes I think about how quickly things fell apart. Silence filled the room, both men lost in memories of their fallout. Tom's heart began to race as he thought of the painful conversations they had avoided. Finally, he found the courage to dive deeper. I think I've let you down. Not just in our friendship, but in a lot of areas of my life. I want to change that. I want to be better. Frank glanced up, vulnerability creeping into his eyes. I feel the same way. But I'm scared of failing again. Scared of disappointing you. Tom swallowed the lump in his throat. We won't know unless we try, right? That's why we're doing this, no more hiding. With each word, the tension faded, replaced by an understanding that was beginning to blossom. They shared stories of the small failures they had encountered over the past few months, work struggles, family challenges, and their own battles with self-doubt. It was liberating to leave the facade behind. As the afternoon wore on, laughter broke through again. The comfort of their friendship slowly stitched back the frayed edges of their past. But just when it seemed like they were on the right track, Tom noticed a flicker of apprehension crossing Frank's face. What's up? Tom asked, his heart sinking slightly. I worry about how things are going to change. What if we start this but can't maintain it? Frank said quietly. We just take it one step at a time. That's all we can do, Tom reassured him, trying to keep the growing unease from surfacing again. But deep inside, he couldn't ignore the familiar dread settling in the pit of his stomach. As they wrapped up their meeting, excitement mixed with fear, and for the first time in a long while, Tom felt something close to hope. Yet, he couldn't shake the looming sense that their biggest challenges were still ahead. Next week? Frank asked, standing by the door with a hopeful smile. Absolutely, Tom replied, but doubt shadowed his words. What would next week look like? As Frank left, Tom watched him walk down the path, uncertainty swirling in his mind. They had a plan, but plans have a way of shifting. Would they truly be ready for the deeper struggles that awaited them? The answer still sat on the tip of his tongue, just out of reach, leaving Tom feeling more anxious than ever. Tom spent the week in a haze of anticipation. Each day felt like an eternity as he replayed their meeting over and over in his mind. The laughter, the shared vulnerabilities, and the fear beneath it all. It was a thrill he hadn't felt in ages, yet it was tinged with what-ifs that kept gnawing at him. Friday arrived, and Tom woke up early, the sun spilling into his room and flickering against the walls. He tried to shake off the unease, but as soon as he thought about the meeting, a cloud settled back in. What would they talk about this time? They had scratched the surface of their problems. What lay beneath was a storm of buried feelings and unresolved issues. Just breathe, he told himself at breakfast. You can do this. When Saturday morning rolled around, Tom put on the shirt he hoped would make him feel more confident. As he looked at himself in the mirror, he forced a smile. He wanted to believe that change was possible. The minutes ticked away again as he paced back and forth in the living room. Each chime of the clock added to his anxiety. Just as he picked up his phone to check the time again, the doorbell rang. Tom's heart raced. He opened the door, and Frank stood there, looking somewhat uneasy, already shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Hey, Frank said, his voice was softer this time, as if he were stepping into a more vulnerable space. Hey. Come on in. Tom led him back to the living room, a strange energy crackling in the air between them. After a few moments of awkward silence, Tom couldn't take it any longer. So what should we talk about today? Frank sat down and ran his hands through his hair, a telltale sign of nerves. I've been thinking a lot about our last meeting. About what we said. Yeah? Me too. Tom braced himself, unsure of where this would lead. I want to be open, but I'm also terrified, Frank admitted, his eyes meeting Tom's with a raw honesty that made Tom's breath catch. I feel like each time we dive deeper into these conversations, we're just unearthing the old wounds. It's heavy. Yeah, it is. Tom took a moment to consider this. But isn't it worth it? To put it all out there? Frank shifted in his seat, a contemplative look crossing his face. I guess what I'm trying to say is, what if we hit a point where we can't come back? Tom's pulse quickened. Are you saying you want to stop now? No. No. That's not what I meant. Frank hesitated, as if searching for the right words. What if we uncover more than we can handle? I don't want to risk losing what we have. The honesty struck Tom like a bolt. It was a fear he shared, one that had been gnawing at the edges of his thoughts too. But isn't that the risk we have to take? If we want to move forward? Frank's gaze softened, even as uncertainty painted his features. I just don't know if we're ready to face everything. I want to, but what if it tears us apart? Tom felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Then I guess we'll find out together. But we can't let fear win. We owe it to ourselves to try. They locked eyes, and for a moment, the air was thick with the weight of their conversation. With each tick of the clock, it felt as though time itself was pressing against them, urging them to make a decision. Then, just as Tom was about to speak again, his phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the intensity of the moment. He glanced down, and to his horror, saw a notification from a mutual friend that made his heart drop. Did you hear about Jason? Things went south. What? Who's Jason? Frank asked, looking concerned. Tom took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the situation settle around them. What did this mean? And how would it change everything they were trying to build? Just someone we both know, he said slowly. But if things have gone south, it could mean trouble for both of us. The urgency in the air shifted dramatically, and both men sat in silence, the connection they had just forged now overshadowed by an unexpected twist waiting for them. Would this news send them spiraling backward, or could it be something that brought them closer than ever? Tom's heart pounded. What was hiding behind the notification? He felt the question hang in the air, a cliffhanger for the journey ahead. The silence between them stretched out, thick and heavy with unspoken fears. Tom could feel his heartbeat hammering in his ears. He was desperate to bridge the gap that had formed, but the weight of the unknown felt nearly unbearable. He glanced at Frank, trying to read the worry etched on his face. What do you think happened? Frank's voice was barely above a whisper, like he was afraid to awaken a sleeping giant. I don't know, Tom replied, his throat dry. But if it's bad, it could impact everything. Jason, not just anyone. Frank swallowed hard. He's part of our group, right? This could change things. Yeah, Tom nodded slowly. And we're already trying to figure things out here. He let his words drift, the real weight behind them hanging unaddressed. What was this news doing to their fragile connection? Had they already started to rebuild only to face another obstacle? Maybe we should reach out to him, Frank suggested, his eyes darting to the phone. See what's going on. Tom hesitated. He felt the instinct to protect what was forming between them. I wouldn't want to drag you into whatever's going on with Jason. I don't even know if I can handle it myself, let alone involve you. But Frank surprised him by shaking his head. No, if this affects you, it affects me too. We can't keep avoiding things. We need to talk about it. There was determination in his voice, something that threw Tom off balance. Okay, but Tom ran a hand through his hair, feeling the tension build again. What if it's worse than we think? Maybe it's better not to know. Or maybe knowing is the only way forward, Frank countered, his intensity flickering with an unexpected light. We have to face things head-on, Tom. We're already starting to be honest with each other. This is just part of that. Tom allowed himself a moment to appreciate Frank's brave heart. They had entered a complicated space, and yet there was warmth in their growing connection, a thread that pulled tighter with each moment of vulnerability. Okay, let us find out, he said finally, trying to summon courage. But we tackle this together. No matter what. With a shaky nod, Frank pulled out his phone and scrolled through his mental list of contacts, pausing only briefly. Do you want to text him? Or should I? Let me, Tom said, his resolve strengthening. He took Frank's phone from him, fingers trembling as he opened a message thread with Jason. As he typed, a knot of anxiety coiled tighter. For each word he committed to the screen, he felt a sense of dread clench his stomach. Was he ready for whatever lay ahead? Finally, after typing and deleting the message multiple times, he pressed send. Okay, I did it. Frank exhaled, his expression a mixture of concern and eagerness. Now we wait. A palpable tension filled the air, wrapping around them like a thick fog. They sat across from each other. Tom could feel the charged energy lingering between them, even more pronounced in the tense silence. Suddenly, Tom's phone buzzed harshly in his pocket, rattling against his heartbeat. Was that? Frank started, eyes wide. Tom could only nod, shock racing through him as he fished out his phone. He stared at the screen for a moment, unable to process the name that lit up Jason. Are you going to open it? Frank urged softly, leaning in. With every ounce of courage he had left, Tom opened the message, taking one last deep breath, feeling as if this moment would determine everything. What would Jason say? As the words filled the screen, Tom's hand trembled, his heart racing. The revelation was one he had never anticipated, and as he read each line, dread seeped into his core. Oh God, Frank, he whispered, eyes wide, grappling with the reality of what they faced. What had he just uncovered? Would it draw them closer together, or tear them apart forever? Tom's heart sank as he read Jason's message again, the weight of the words crashing down on him like a tidal wave. His pulse raced, and each churn of his stomach felt more pronounced. The reality set in, Jason had changed teams, as he put it, and it wasn't just a casual remark. It was an emotional earthquake he hadn't been prepared for, unraveling the tightly knit threads of their friendship and everything that was supposed to be a refuge amidst chaos. Frank leaned closer, his gaze searching Tom's face. What does it say? You look like you've seen a ghost. Tom shook his head, still unable to find his voice. He looked at Frank, searching for the words to explain the turmoil inside him. Breathing heavily, he finally managed to stutter out, "He's saying he can't be a part of our group anymore. He said he needs a break from everything. From us." Wait, what? Why? Frank's eyes widened with shock. Did he give a reason? Something about finding himself? It sounds almost cliché, Tom replied, frustration bleeding into his voice. But it feels like more. Like he's turning his back on us, on everything we had built. Like we're not worth fighting for. What a coward. Frank exploded, his voice thick with indignation. He's just walking away because it's too hard. We've all been through so much and he wants to just bail. Tom felt a swell of anger at Jason's message too, echoing Frank's sentiment, but beneath the surface it was almost overshadowed by pain. He was our friend, Frank. How do we just replace that? Maybe we don't, Frank said quietly, a softness enveloping his words. Maybe we focus on what we have and what's still here, right in front of us. His hand brushed gently against Tom's. Just that small motion sent warmth lacing through Tom's veins. They must have been really close, Tom thought to himself, processing how Jason's south departure opened an avenue for something new with Frank. Would that connection survive Jason leaving? Would it allow them to grow stronger? It felt fragile yet full of potential, as if they were balancing on the edge of a cliff, trying not to look down. What do we do now? Tom finally asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. He felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. Frank took a deep breath, steadying himself. We take this moment raw and messy as it is and figure out what's next for us. Jason isn't the one who gets to define our story anymore. We decide. Tom couldn't help but smile a little at that. The spark Frank had brought into the room felt almost electric, igniting hope amidst the chaos. You're right. It's just hard to let go, you know? I do, Frank replied, his grip tightening on Tom's hand. But we owe it to ourselves not to let one person's decision chain us down. We can't let his actions dictate our happiness. Let us make sure we do better, Tom said. Together. No more secrets. No more running. Together, Frank echoed, the warmth in his eyes telling Tom that whatever storms lay ahead, they'd stand side by side to face them. As silence settled, Tom felt the pulse of possibility between them, a tender promise unfolding. Just then, Frank's phone buzzed violently on the table, vibrating with urgency. They both jumped slightly, Frank reaching for it as if it held the answers to everything, something else they were desperate to know. Who is it? Tom asked, holding his breath, but deep down, he feared it might be another blow. As Frank read the screen, his face went white. It's another message from Jason. Tom's heart raced again. This could change everything. What could Jason possibly have to say now? Would it shatter the fragile peace they had just begun to establish, or would it draw them closer in understanding? Tom held his breath as Frank stared at the screen, emotions cascading through the room like a violent tide. The energy shifted from hopeful anticipation to tight anxiety. What's it say? Tom urged, leaning forward, Frank's face twisted, the lines of worry deepening. He says he needs to explain. He wants to meet in person. Tom's heart raced, a mix of urgency and dread flooding his veins. Meet? But why now? The confusion tangled with anger. Why couldn't Jason have the decency to reach out when they were all together? Frank released a shaky breath. He mentioned feeling overwhelmed. He wants to apologize. It sounds serious, Tom. Serious how? The questions loomed like dark clouds. Tom felt the last threads of certainty slipping away. Is he just going to sweep everything under the rug? Frank shook his head. I don't know. But we owe it to ourselves to hear him out. This was the moment they had been dreading, the crux of everything that hung in the air between them. Was it possible Jason could return and shatter the fragile reconciliation they were just beginning to stitch together? Tom's mind raced. He had hoped this journey would lead to a renewed bond with Frank, but now uncertainty crept in like a shadow. Would Jason's presence undo the strides they had made? Are you sure you want to meet with him? Tom challenged, fear creeping into his voice. What's the point if he's just going to make excuses? Because if we're serious about rebuilding, Frank replied steadily, a glimmer of determination in his eyes, we can't leave things as they are. It's a distraction, not to mention unfair to us. Tom stared at his friend, the weight of his friend's words settling around them. Could they brighten the past together, or would they only stumble on the mismatched pieces of their shared history? Okay, he said finally, let us hear him out. But let us promise ourselves we won't let this derail us. Promise, Frank said wisely, squeezing Tom's shoulder reassuringly. They shared a knowing look, an unspoken understanding lingering, heavy yet charged with hope. Hours later, the meeting was set. The three of them gathered at the local diner, a safe, bustling ground filled with laughter and chatter that buzzed around them. But between Tom and Frank, a hush blanketed the table, uncertainty thick and tangible. Jason arrived, his expression a canvas of regret. Tom's heart faltered. He had dreamed of this moment, but now, seeing the remnants of their past faintly lingering in Jason's weary demeanor, he felt trepidation tightening his throat. "Thanks for meeting me," Jason began, his voice wavering. "I know I dropped a bomb and ran. I was scared, and I let that fear control me." Tom exchanged a glance with Frank. They were both in this together. "We need honesty, Jason," Tom said firmly, letting his need for clarity push him forward. "You left us without an explanation. It hurts to feel abandoned." Jason nodded, the truth echoed in Tom's voice. "I didn't handle things right. I got overwhelmed with everything: work, friendships, my personal life. I didn't believe I was strong enough to face it all. So I just withdrew." "You were supposed to be part of our support system," Frank interjected, a lump forming in his throat. "By leaving, you made it worse for all of us." "I know," Jason replied, remorse glimmering in his eyes. "But I needed space to discover what I really wanted. And in doing that, I pushed away the people I cared about the most." Tom felt a flicker of understanding. Everyone fought their battles in different ways, and it seemed Jason had fought his alone. "We get it," he said softly. "But we've all been through a lot together. It didn't have to be like this. We wanted to help you." Eyes downcast, Jason took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry. I truly am. I never wanted my departure to hurt you guys. I made a reckless choice." "Okay," Frank replied cautiously. "But what does all this mean now? Are you ready to come back into our lives, or do you need more time?" Jason clenched his jaw, the tension palpable. "I want to come back. But I want to be honest. I never want to hurt you two again. But I'm also sorting through a lot. If I stumble, I want to have a plan." This time, it was Tom's turn to nod. "That's fair. We'll take this slow, together. One step at a time. Like we are." With words rushed and transparent, a gentler connection began to weave, binding them once more. The raw honesty exchanged was almost like a healing balm, the weight lifting little by little. As they shared their experiences and roots of pain, laughter broke through the heaviness, memories sparkling like stars emerging from behind storm clouds. In those moments, they realized they could still carve out a life filled with purpose together despite the aching realities of their past. The sun began to dip, casting soft tones of warmth across the room. This was a new chapter, one filled with healing and renewed friendship. And maybe, just maybe, it would lead to something even brighter, a stronger foundation built on honesty, acceptance, and unwavering support. Tom looked at Frank and Jason, a surge of hope flooding through him. It was a long road ahead, but they were going to weather the storms together. They finished their meals, but it wasn't just about food anymore. It was about a path emerging, one where bonds were tested but not broken, friendship rekindled rather than extinguished. In that small, bustling diner, amongst the laughter and clinking of dishes, they had all taken pivotal steps. And in that moment of newfound hope, Tom felt peace. Now's your chance. You need to subscribe now to follow more incredible journeys like this one. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. Your thoughts matter. Comment below and share your feelings about this transformation. And for your friends who need some inspiration, don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 people. They'll thank you for it. Let us build a community grounded in resilience and support.